So starting out a afternoon of sprayer conversations, and so put together a little presentation to kind of get the ball rolling on that. After myself, it's Corey Palm with drones, and then a roundtable on sprayers. And wanted to just be able to talk about the progression, the evolution of what sprayers have become, maybe where they're going. I think driving around, looking at the sprayers that are out in the fields are probably the most diverse group of sprayers, and from last year to now maybe the next few years, where it's anywhere from just a constant pressure sprayer, what's typical out there. Then we got lots of pulse width sprayers going on, and now with the see and spray. So it's big diversity within probably the room, within the fields out there. So the GPS, I guess, is probably what has evolved the fastest, and to me is the most fun to try to keep up with. Go back to, I don't remember ever flagging for a sprayer, but I definitely remember putting in the foam markers, filling that up prior to GPS and prior to all the mapping. And then we get into pass to pass accuracy. And as we went through the evolution there, trying to make sure that we were setting the sprayer to maybe 97 feet when it was a 100-foot sprayer, or 87 feet on a 90-foot sprayer. Repeatability, be able to go back and hit them same tracks time and time again. Getting into RTK, lots of farms that had the RTK base stations on the farm or out in the field. And then we get into the cell phone to try to pick up that RTK off cell phone towers. That was quite common. I remember just trying to keep up with that technology and how to explain it to students in a program at Lake Region. And then also we just kind of went right through that, and now we have RTK precision right on stock GPS, plus then 2.5 centimeter precision on there. Then we look at other ways to do guidance. Maybe it's not through GPS, maybe it's a mechanical through the feeler on a wheel to drive down the corn rows. Use GPS to do it that way, so we're not trying to set ABs or A pluses on that. And then into the auto track or into vision. And I think this is where a lot of things are going, and the AI technology and camera and sensors. And so whether or not it's that sprayer picking up on the rows of corn while they're small, knowing where to auto steer down that road or down that row, maybe it's picking up on tram lines. And then where is that technology going? Where are those cameras and those sensors ending up on? Does that tram line have to be green to black? Can it just pick up on a previous path? Then once we got the cameras on there, are we starting to see obstacles? Is this controlling just down the parallel swath? Is it controlling down just the auto steer, or is it actually starting to go around obstacles and do the turn automation? I think on the farm now, go on to and look and see what they're doing for auto steer. And the big conversation is just the auto track, and having everything in that first planting pass, the implement guidance. And then just the last few years have really seen that explode on going up and down the road and seeing planters with the GPS globe on them, air seers with the GPS globe. And it turns in from one globe on an operation to multiple globes. But then with that auto track guidance, you're able to come back in, repeat on the same pass, make sure your sprayer is never going down the guest row, using it to establish all your paths when you open up and border the field. Turn automation. I think when turn automation first came out, it was just kind of a mechanical memory of the turning, raising, lowering the implement. And now it's a little more sensor based, where that future goes, and AI, and able to do all of that automated at different places in the field, not just on that headland paths. With that, then four-way steer, which I don't know is to me a technology that's out on a couple of sprayers, and something that is maybe worth talking about or looking at as you're pondering a new sprayer. Just the minimizing that running over at the end of the headlands. And then I also think with the four-way steer, we're just eventually maybe very close here in the next couple of years, maybe it's a little further out, but when you start looking at all the sensors, the four-way steer, It's just inevitable that I believe it's coming to automation. Anytime I mention automation, which to me I like mentioning because then people ask or say, well, we got too many obstacles out in our fields. How are we able to just send a sprayer out there and base this off of automation and let it do itself? And this doesn't play on the PowerPoint, but I did bring up when just what a Tesla sees as a Tesla or automated vehicle is driving down the road. And it wasn't too many years ago where this seemed like this was far out. And now, if I think that Tesla just announced their automated taxi cab services, and their cars are going down the road and it's monitoring, it knows the car speed in front of it. You can see when it gets to the traffic lights up there, they're in a red box. It's the light's red, and then when the light turns green, it's in a green box. The distances between all the obstacles are all being recorded or being fed into Tesla software. There, the light turned green and the box turned green, lane changes, and so I don't believe it's going to be that difficult to add into a sprayer. So moving on from the GPS and the guidance just into the application, I mean, you can take back to not 20 years ago, I suppose, and you were picking your nozzles based off a formula and a calculation, trying to calculate out your gallon per minute. So which nozzle you were buying based off your gallon per acre. I have a couple of former students in here, so I know they've done that calculation, but I don't know how many other people have done that calculation too recently. To then be able to understand your 05 and your 06 nozzle, probably running at back through a red ball system. Then we got into our constant pressure, just having our controller on there, being able to maintain that constant, the constant pressure. But as we sped up or slowed down, well, the pressure was moving or maintaining that constant gallon per acre, and that pressure was fluctuating, creating fines or maybe not keeping that spread pattern out there. We could monitor individual. There's some aftermarket individual nozzle monitoring systems that can be added to help maintain that on those controllers. But this is where I think, well, I would say the market share is right now is probably within pulse width. It's probably 5 years ago, maybe wasn't the case. It was just that constant gallon per acre and changed the pressure on it. When pulse width first came out, some of the technologies that were being talked about was variable rate spray application. And there was probably maybe some of that going on. Herbicides have a labeled rate, so there really isn't much room for variable rate application there. But there were some things that we could do with the pulse width on a precision side to try to make things a little bit more efficient. We could look at fungicides, have a labeled rate of a variation, so you could variable rate your fungicide application. Some pre-emergents have a high, low rate, so you can variable rate that. But one thing that was trying to look and was doing with pulse width was just being able to have the on-off out on it, like for a fungicide application. So Prairie, Devil's Lake Basin, Prairie Pothole region, you got sloughs, you got alkali, you got probably areas, if this was going to be a canola field where when you're doing your canola fungicide pass, probably could use the high rate, and you got areas that probably use a low rate. And then you go in on those alkali spots around the field, and they probably just don't need any sort of rate on there. So we could load in a prescription on a pulse width and be able to rate maybe it's just as simple as an on and off. Maybe it's an on and off with two different rates out there. So this is something that is definitely available, I think, on a number of sprayers out there with the pulse width. Other reasons people got into pulse width, or maybe if you're not into pulse width quite yet, to start looking at entering into that would just be each individual nozzle's controlled. So you have individual section control, and then you have your turn compensation. So that picture up on the upper left kind of just walks through that turn compensation. So as you're turning around all the potholes in our geography, and that outside boom is speeding up, and that inside boom is staying still. You got maybe half a rate, a third a rate, a tenth of the rate on the outside boom, and you're maybe damaging the crop from too heavy a rate on the inside. And then with individual section control, and the picture there. And I would say, I would make a claim that going around some of our sloughs, some of our abnormal boundaries in this geography, maybe was what led to some weed resistance of those weeds not getting the full rate out there. And so if you're looking at tough to control weeds, you have lots of growing points, you need lots of coverage. If all of a sudden that outside boom is going at 30 miles an hour coming around there, and you're still not differentiating your rate on the outside, you're not getting the coverage, and then that plant's going to live through that and end up having to be some resistance. The other place I really think pulse width and that individual nozzle control is beneficial is waterways. I see a lot of in our geography, a waterway probably isn't seeded to grass. The water runs through it. It is probably wet there. The crop doesn't emerge. Maybe it's a low vegetation. There's no crop growing. All of a sudden now we got alkali in those areas. So I guess this does work on the TV. This is a nice seeded grass waterway. This one is not. They want to farm through it, which makes all the sense in the world here. But you can see that alkalinity, salt is starting to show up there. Maybe if they could get grass growing. But then the problem with that is, planting through it, spraying through it. I don't want to turn the sprayer off. Well, we can go in with software and put our boundaries or our borders in, have individual sections, individual nozzle control. The sprayer can go right through that, and we can leave with our grass waterways there. But throughout the pulse width, the ability to do that variable rate variable rate application, whether it's a fungicide or pre-emergent, was always, maybe sought after a little bit. And so there were some aftermarket components you could add to the sprayer. I don't know if this really took off in this geography. I'm not sure of too many sprayers around here that were using an injection system, but definitely is something that can be purchased and added to. Run multiple products and inject that active ingredient as in the concentrated form into the solution. And one area where that, that's something that you may want to look at, fields with eroded hilltops. You usually don't see this when you're farming through the field, but from that aerial image, you can see, I won't even call them hilltops, just little knolls that maybe a foot or 2 feet above in elevation, and the wind has taken that organic matter off. And now you might be growing a crop like edible beans, putting a pre-emergent on, and that pre-emergent gets kind of hot on that low organic matter area. Can look at doing a prescription of different rates on there. And then that could be done maybe with a direct injection or back with pulse width. And then I think where this is all leading up to is some of the technology that is just being put out right now through multiple different brands and multiple different carriers, but is the see and spray technology, be able to identify that weed and just specifically target it. And so looking at this image, these are green weeds on black ground. So there's a camera sensor. It knows that the field should be black, and anything that is vegetation, it's going to sense that in the camera, and it's going to spray and target that weed. And this technology, I mean, I can't quote me on how long this has been available. It seemed like it wasn't out for too long, and all of a sudden there are sprayers in the geography with it. I think it was in 2019. I was part of a project where similar to this, but we were flying a drone over a field prior to the spraying application. The drone was taking the pictures. It was those images then were being sent to a software company. A software company was stitching all those images together, running it through a software. It was identifying weeds. Both times it was in black ground, summer follow condition, or in 30-inch rows is what we were working on. And then that from that drone image, we could upload that as a prescription into a sprayer of just on and off. So the sprayer wasn't sensing the weeds. It was taken with that drone flight the day before, and then a prescription was loaded in. And I was working on that project for two summers, and then this came out, and it's like, okay, well, now if we can put that camera right on the boom, we're probably not, the drone technology aspect of it is probably already obsolete. And I doubt they would have been doing that drone project had they been too much aware that this product was going to come out. So just going back to this though, real quick, this is just on black ground, being able to sense green vegetation, which is really cool. But how often are we spraying summer, fall of ground? Most of the time our sprayer is growing in want to spray a crop. So then where can we take that technology? And now it's not that the sensors or the cameras are seeing weeds on black ground, but it's actually identifying the weed, or in this case, I think what this technology do is identifying the crop, and then whatever isn't the crop is the weed, and the sprayer can turn on and off and target that weed. There is technology out there where they are identifying the weed, and there's been the last couple of summers, there's been lots of projects where they were looking for people to just go take 1 million pictures of weeds, so they can run it into databases, and the computers can get an idea of what a kochia looks like from every single different area of the picture, every different growing stage, what kochia looks like in every different geography, so that camera can actually recognize that this is a kochia plant compared to a pigweed plant. Here it's picking up canola. What is canola? And then the vegetation is not canola. And then if you got a technology like that, you can make some really cool social media posts. So you put cameras on, because now we can put cameras on the sprayer, so that camera can come on and off exactly when that nozzle is coming on and off, or that blue light camera to be able to spray at the dark. And I can get lost at night watching cool videos of seeing sprayers turning on and off with the blue light, and we put the red light at the end of the boom so the operator knows where that is. And, I mean, if there's accessories to be put on equipment, it seems like in ag, we can build it and people will buy it. And then just moving on to making it more aftermarket. And this is kind of my photo to just point out that this stuff is available through aftermarket products. It's not just through an OEM. And I think that's what's most interesting about this technology is there are companies that will sell those cameras, and you can retrofit a current sprayer. Maybe you're doing a self-propelled sprayer, doing a pull type sprayer, able to add that to it. So here's Precision Planting's, their camera. On Precision Planting, they got one of their products. They got two different, I think it's the same camera. It's just how many of them you want to put on your boom. If you're just looking for that camera to sense green weeds against black ground, or I believe with the one on the left can variable rate and just pick up the density. So if you're spraying a small wheat crop or a row crop, and it's going to pick up that you have weed pressure because there's more greenness in that area, it's a denser vegetation, that it can up the rate on it or lower the rate. And by putting one camera every 10 feet, you can achieve that. But if you wanted to purchase more cameras and put cameras every 5 feet, then you're able to turn on and off on that. And I don't specifically know what a camera costs, but I know a couple of years ago, we took the students at the college to tour John Deere, where they were assembling and building these and the brains to them. And at that time, I think on the assembly line, they were talking to us like the graphics card that is processing this information. One of those computers, we'll call it, was like $20,000-$30,000, and there were multiple of them on a boom to be able to process this information. So it might not sound like much by buying a couple less cameras. You wouldn't be able to do everything, but it's probably a lot of expense in going every 5 feet compared to every 10 feet. But as soon as they start talking about singling out weeds and turning on and off, then the conversation turned to, well, I have other products in my tank that need to be broadcasted across the whole field. I might be doing a pre-emergent with glyphosate or a burner for that's submerged. And so this technology, you know, really doesn't apply to me because I need to put my pre down. And so you can move on to spray systems that then have two tanks. That pre-emergent that you want broadcast across the whole field can be in one tank, always applying. And then that secondary tank with the camera system can be kicking on and off as there is emerged weeds. And so what could the savings end up there? Probably a lot of different math and different for every different operation, depending on your chemical load. And I imagine the companies have gotten into this. Maybe some will be discussed at the round table in a couple of presentations from now. But I mean, I definitely could see anywhere from spraying maybe just 10% less chemical to 80% less chemical. And you start looking at an application map of this. I don't know, just by looking and guessing, you know, maybe 70% less chemical was applied on that. And again, it's just by the camera being able to sense that particular weed, and then one nozzle being able to turn on or two or whatever that patch, however big that patch is, but specifically spraying just over that weed that needs to be eliminated. Just keep going down the camera, kind of moving gears a little bit, but just still on cameras. Not too familiar with this product, but did a little look into it on a SWAT cam. And what I gather from this particular product, the SWAT cam, is this taking an RGB or, you know, just like a camera picture. It's not picking up a vegetated index of it, but it's taking a camera picture every so many feet across your boom, so however cameras you put on. And so if I'm looking at an as applied map, at the end of the day, here's my field that's been sprayed across. And let's say these green dots here represent where pictures were taken. And I can say, okay, we sprayed quite a bit here. We must have some heavy weed pressure there. Yeah, I can go and pull that picture up after the application as the agronomist or the farmer and be like, oh yeah, there was a lot of weed pressure there. Oh, that was kochia. Good thing we had kochia product in the tank. Or maybe looking through here and auditing after an application, I would find let's go check out and see what this pressure was. And then I find by looking at this camera that this was a weed pressure that I hadn't scouted and I didn't have that product in the tank, and now I can maybe fix it. So you're able to pull up those images. Another product out there that might come in handy is just Reclaim. All sorts of different aftermarket products on this, but just recirculating that boom on the material, the product in your boom. So that way, when you start spraying, you don't have to purge out, go over the ditch and open that sprayer up and let it spray in the ditch until you feel that you primed your boom. And then same thing when rinsing out. And I kind of put this image up here just to show where, you know, if you didn't prime your boom and get that chemical from your tank into the end of your boom, and you start spraying, your weed pressure, you would have less chemical come in here. This is a dramatic picture because it didn't rinse out the boom, but the Reclaim would help, or recirc. There's different number of different names for this would help do that. It can be added to any particular sprayer. This product I just learned about, and boy, I'm going to have to take the Lake Region Ag Group and to tour this facility and this product. And so just a mixing product, and we're connecting all the hoses from, say, your bulk tanks. You got your bulk glyphosate and your pre-emergent and all that on the trailer. You're connecting them all to that tree. And then this tree of products that you have connected there is going to empty into either a mixing container like this or like that, from what I understand on it. You have an iPad here that controls it. So let's say you got 4 or 5 different tank mix products hooked into these openers, electronic openers there. You punch that all in, got a little bit of a close up here. Each one of these represents the products that you are trying to mix. You put in your tank mix. The sprayer comes in, hooks up to this, and you really just hit go on your iPad, and this is all automated. It opens up your predetermined 30 gallons. Let's say you need a glyphosate, opens that in, fills this, shoots it into the sprayer. But there's always drawbacks, right? Maybe you're mixing AMS, you got some dry out there. Well, how do you handle that? Or maybe you have 2.5 gallon jugs. Well, I believe it was with both of them. It was a video I watched with this one. This one has a scale on it too. So if you would put that the pounds per gallon of that product when you put it in the iPad, and you just start dumping in your dry AMS, and it weighs up, and it'll tell you, when you hit your limit that you want in there for tank load. And then same thing with a 2.5 gallon jug. Now, if whatever you're mixing in is 2.5 gallons per batch, no big deal. But if it's 1.25 gallons, you can do that all on a weight. You just add in that jug in. It weighs. When this comes all the way across, you have now dumped in as much chemical as was you programmed in. So technology on that. There's always been like the green seeker out there, and some advancements on that where we're just working with cameras, putting cameras out, and being able to turn that into a rate. And so maybe for desiccation, a lot of people say we're going out there and desiccating that wheat field when really only 15% of that wheat field probably needs desiccating. The other 20% or 80% probably out in stages of what needs desiccating or not. But there's a little bit that's awfully green, so we're desiccating it. These cameras can turn on and off based off of how much green is out there. Added to there. And then I always think with technology, it always comes down to data and data management and being able to retrieve that data. And just your application maps just has our product or our field on there. Everything that was going on, our applied acres. How easy is it to get your data from your controller into a computer or a printout? I think is part of this evolution of technology. And there are a number of different softwares out there. This one happens to be coming out of my John Deere, but all of this is being sent to my John Deere. I'm able to print this out as the sprayer finishes the field. And then throughout my tank mix is all plugged in there. It's going to tally up my total gallons of each product on that field. I don't know if that's all that big of a deal, but at the end of the day or at the end of the season, I can tally up. If I got two, a father and a son farming, I can query all that out on who's Roundup, how much Roundup went to dad, how much Roundup went to the son. Bring this all into Excel, do it all through the software. And then I also have the temperature, wind, and humidity all right there too from the weather station that is put on the sprayer. And so products like, I don't know where the dicamba label is going. I don't want to get into the dicamba conversation, but those products require 3 years of record keeping. Here's my 3 years of record keeping. Now, specifically for dicamba, this doesn't cover everything you need on that record keeping label, but this has my timing and all the weather information. Now it's just exporting it out into Excel. And so to just kind of wrap this up, the overall, where I think the theme of this is, it's data, data, data. We are just collecting so much data every time we're going across the field. We can collect the data down to each individual nozzle and how each individual nozzle is performing. And when it comes to data, there's lots of kind of really fun world conversations going on right now. And I think it applies to us in agriculture. Like these big data centers that are being built and being talked about in the news. I mean, this is where our data is going. And this was just a headline that came off that said it's an energy company called Lithium is planning to build 5 new data centers, and they're going to be between 2.5 gigawatts and 5 gigawatts of power. They're using this power to just to house all of this data and cool all this data. And they're planning 5 new campuses that could be up to 6 gigabyte of data. The US looked up takes 1,200 gigabytes of data of energy, 1,200 gigabytes of energy in the last year. And now these companies are building these great big campuses that are going to require 6 gigabytes of energy just to house this data. And so as data is going in, and then the next big things that are in the news are going to affect us on the farm is this quantum computing. And Google, that's probably the most one that you hear about out there is with their Willow chip. And we've got all those sensors bring the data in, all these cameras that are looking at all of these different weeds. We're able to, it's bringing that in, storing it, using AI to then filter out and be able to identify it. And to me, it is all for you guys. Run out of time. You don't care about bits and qubits, but that's an interesting thing. To me, here's the last slide I'll end with, and this is where I think everything is going to be going. It's just how soon do we get there? How soon before the autonomous self-driven sprayer and tractor is able to make its own decisions, able to sense wet ground, able to sense the shelter belt, maybe even have multiple products or separate tanks on here where a nozzle can turn on with just the chemical to spray a kochia, and then differentiate that between if it's a pigweed. Identify the weed and then apply the right chemical to it. Might be a little bit out there, but I think that's where I see things going.